Good morning. So today is July 18th, Thursday. And I want to tell you about my own personal Beyond Quantum Healing session that I had done on me yesterday. So if you've been watching this channel for any length of time, you know that I've started doing those along with the tarot readings. And I had a chakra balancing and Reiki session a couple of weeks ago, and when I called to set up that appointment, I found out this gal also did BQH. So we got to talking about it, and she's like, have you ever had one? And I was like, no, I've done them, but I haven't had one on myself. And she's like, oh my God, you got to try one. So I was like, yes, I do. And I had it yesterday. So I want to tell you what happened during that very, very, very cool session. And so I am going to close my eyes because I can't look at myself in the camera and think straight. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to tell you about it and what I learned during the session. So I went to her house, and she took me through the whole meditation to, get me down and visualize and everything. And so the first place it takes me was like to a mountain, and it ended up being a recharging youthing station in Mount Shasta 10 years in the future. I didn't know that at the time, but I found that out later. So this is what happened during that particular event. I went in there, and when I walked in, and I'm going to have to use my hands. I can't talk without using my hands. So when I walked into call it the cave, the cavern, the whatever, it was, if you've ever been cave walking, or there's a word for it, when you're inside a cave walking around, there was a big room when I first walked in, and it had all kinds of crystals in it. And when I walked in, they all lit up and got really, really super bright. And like they were really happy to see me. And then when I went and touched some of them, they dimmed. And when I did that, I started bawling my head off during the session. I mean, I was like, I think that was the portion where I was sobbing so hard that I couldn't even breathe out of my nose, because what I was being told was that I had come there to recharge as a light worker, and that my energy was so low that it was like it was making them sad, the crystal sad or something. I don't know exactly what that was, but anyway, that was the first part of that journey. And then she took me over. She's like, well, what else do you see? And I'm like, I can hear water running over here. So I go through the next place, and there's like a stream, 2 or 3 inches of water or stream of water running through the cave. I hate to call it a mountain, because at this point in time, I feel like I'm just in a portion of the mountain, but there's water running through it, and it's like 2 or 3 inches inside, and it's still dark and everything, but there's some crystals up on the wall, kind of like lanterns. So it wasn't completely dark in there, because the crystals were lighting the way for me, so I could see, sit there and kind of play in the water, and it was nice and clear and everything. And she's like, so what else do you see? And so it ended up taking me to a big pool of water, deep enough for my whole body to get in, because there wasn't enough that wasn't deep enough. So I jump in this other pool of water, and it probably came up to here, or I don't know, up to my head, but my tippy toes could touch the bottom, so I could kind of bounce up and down. And that actual pool of water was like the youthing part of it. And so I hung out in that for a little while, and when I got out of there, my skin kind of looked like it did when it was 8, and I was younger for sure. And she goes, check in with your internal organs and everything, and tell me what you see. And I'm like, clean. I'm like, they're like really, really clean, and I'm not overweight. So it's like reversed a lot of the damage that I had done to my body over the years. And so it was like I was like 8 years old again. And she's like, so what happens next? And I'm like, so there's a guide that's come in and he's going to take me to the next section. And he didn't know a whole lot. He was just, his job was just kind of my tour guide to take me from place to place to place. And he did not look human. He had like skinny arms and like a big bald blue head. And he didn't have a whole lot to say. You know, when I'd ask him questions, he was just kind of like a worker bee or whatever. But he took me to the next place. And the next place was, I'll call it the cafeteria, because I could hear this, like, I realized afterwards it sounded like hydraulic sounds, like you hear like in a tire place when you're getting your tires changed, like that sucking noise or whatever. But what was there and what I was there to receive was this big tube of, and it honestly, it looked like antifreeze. It was kind of that orangey, glowy green antifreeze color, but it was good. It was not bad for you. It was good. And they would shoot it in your arm, although I was expecting to get fed through my mouth. So I'm like, apparently I was like going, you know, and I started laughing because when I got in there, I just got the giggles because I'm like, I'm like making these noises that I could hear, and I'm like waiting for this big thing. And I said, it's like all the fruits and vegetables and like 1,000 times more packed than any fruit and vegetable. It was like super duper charged vitamin B shots or something. I don't even know how to explain it. And so they like shoot it in my arm, and I'm kind of like, that's it? And he's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, apparently I said I saw an apple, and I'm like going, well, can I have one of those apples? Because I apparently have a food fetish where I need to eat my food and not have it shot in my arm. So the next place she leads me through, and she's like, so where do we go next? And I'm like, she had asked me earlier, she's like, are there other people in there? And I'm just like, I can hear other people echoing through the cavern, but they're not in here with me. And I'm like, there's different sections of this cavern, and each place has a different thing that you do. And there's like only 50 people at a time that is in there, because you can't have thousands of people in there, and only special people go in there anyway. So so the next place we go after I get my shot of breakfast in my arm is to the lounge. And the lounge has couches and TVs and groups of people standing around talking. And she's like, I said, it's kind of like cliques. There's talking about different things, but it's different groups of light workers talking about what they've been doing on Earth. And like the first one I come to, I was like, oh no, this is a bunch of engineers. I'm like, I can't do that. I'm like that right over my head. And so then the next group of people was my people. These were the people who worked with trauma, the ones that worked with emotions and stuck emotions and childhood wounds and core wounds and all the crap that I've been dealing with since I have been here on Earth, or especially after probably the last, 10, 15 years of major work on myself. So this was the group of people that were doing that. But in that group of people, everybody was different ages and stuff. So not everybody did what I did. Not everybody went into the youthing pool. And the reason that I had gone into the youthing pool was because I had more work to do on Earth, but my body was starting to give out on me because of my age and stuff. So I went back to basically kind of have my internal organs or whatever revamped and kind of like made new again so I could keep going, because I was tired, really super tired from all the work I had been doing. And so that was why I was there. But there were also, like 70-year-old people whose bodies were still working just fine, but they maybe had Alzheimer's or something. And so they had gone in to have their brains euthanized, and like go back to an earlier age. So there were all different ages of people standing there. And, like an 8-year-old kid could say, well, yeah, I did this and da-da-da-da-da one time. And under normal circumstances, you would have been like, you're 8. How could you have ever done that? But we all knew what was going on in this lounge and this recharging station. So it made sense. But she asked me, she's like, so what do you look like if you hold a mirror up to yourself? And I was like, well, if I hold a mirror up to myself, what I can see is when I come back to earth, everybody's going to still see me the same. They're not going to, I said, like, after I lost weight, I lost like 70 pounds and people saw me for the first time after losing 70 pounds. And a lot of people didn't even recognize me. They were like, what? And I said, it's not going to be like that. I'm going to go back and people are going to still see me the same from the outside. It's just the inside that has been kind of revamped and recharged and replenished so I can keep moving forward. And so we did all of that. And she goes, so are you done here? And I'm like, yeah, I guess I'm ready to go back. I mean, I really, 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 really could have stayed there. Oh, and she goes, well, what else is there? And I said, well, there are classrooms. And I said, I could go sit in a classroom for 8 hours. Cause she asked me, is there any like new healing modalities or anything there? And I said, yeah. I said, I don't know what they are. I said, I could go sit in a classroom if I wanted to learn about it. But I think at this point in time, it's just kind of like, they just kind of like, boop, and they send it to you when it's time for a new healing modality. But if you want to sit in a classroom, you can, just like the apple. I didn't need the apple because they had given me my food in my arm. But if I wanted the apple, I could have access to it. So, she had asked me, she said, can you tell me, I think it was in this portion, she said, can you tell me what the year is? And I said, it looks to me like I was seeing like 2029. So this is like 10 years in the future when we light workers are able to go to this recharging station in Mount Shasta. And she goes, is anybody allowed in there? And I said, no. I said, garbage workers would not go in here. Restaurant workers wouldn't go in here. I said, this is for the light workers that have been here on the front lines, working their ass off, trying to get everybody moved over to New Earth and helping the vibrations and everything. And apparently 10 years down the road, some of us are still going to be working on that. Because I remember thinking, God, is this ever going to be over? So apparently I said, there's still some really stubborn people that won't move over to the new way of thinking. So apparently whatever I am doing for the next 10 years, it has something to do with the reprogramming and the emotions and getting fear and everything and all the stuff that I have been working on myself that I help with other clients with. So she goes, so are you done here? And I was like, yeah, I think I'm done here. She goes, she goes, okay, so where do you go when you leave here? And I don't know if I jumped times at that point or whether I left there and went home. That I don't know. Because again, this whole thing apparently happened like 10 years in the future. But when I went home, it took me to, and this could make sense to some of you, like the Super Bowl trophy is shaped like a football on a stand. And when I went home, it took me to like this like pod in the sky, which was clear, like plastic type clear, but it stood on this big stand, but it was like way, 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 way up in the sky, kind of like the Jetsons, like you picture the Jetsons and stuff. And she goes, well, what does it look like? And I said, well, honestly, it looks a lot like my apartment. I said, I still like have like the same colors and the blue couch and the same vibe and the crystals and everything. I just don't have somebody living upstairs and I don't have walls around me. So it's a lot lighter and brighter. And I said, I can see down to earth, but there's a big white mist, and I assume it was probably clouds, like a big white cloud between where I was and where Earth was. And she goes, well, how do you get down there? And I was like, I just go bloop, and I'm down there. I'm like, so she said, so are there cars? And I was like, nope. I'm like, cars are gone. I'm like, they stopped those a long time ago because they stinky and they were messing up the earth and stuff. And she goes, well, how did that all happen? And I'm like, and I know she was talking about the event or trying to get more information from me from the event. And all I said was, I don't know. I'm like, that's been so long ago, I've forgotten about it. So that's why it makes me think that maybe this pod in the sky was more than 10 years in the future, because I would think I would remember 10 years back. But I also said, this is the one thing that I can remember. I said, it was not the big deal that everybody was making out. It was a big disappointment for a lot of people, because a lot of people were hyping this all up. And I said, but it didn't turn out to be as big a deal as everybody thought it was going to be. And I said, maybe that's because there were more people prepared for it than not prepared. So when it actually happened, there wasn't as many people going, oh my God, you know. So that was probably the fun part, because in that part of the session, I went from, like I said, bawling my head off when I first got into the cave to laughing my ass off when I was in the cafeteria getting ready to get my shot of breakfast in my arm, and hearing the noises, the suction noises that were going on, and just laughing as I was trying to explain what was going on. There was some other stuff that happened. I was a shepherd and some other stuff that I didn't find that relevant about, you know, I mean, I went back and listened to it again this morning. Not that relevant. And then she asked me all the questions, because I had a whole list of questions about like my purpose, and am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and is there anything I need to be working on, and blah, 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 blah. So I got some of those answered, and basically found out a lot of what stresses me out right now is fear that surrounds the old way that I used to work, which was working 2 and 3 jobs all the time, and not working 2 and 3 jobs all the time, and feeling guilty about how I am able to do what I do now, which is, you know, my dad died and left me some money that I didn't know I was getting, which has allowed me to shift from the way I used to be into where I am at now. And I apparently have a lot of guilt around that. That's stressing me out, because I know there's a lot of people out there that would like to be in the position that I am in and able to do what I'm doing and not worry about money at this point in time. But I know eventually that money is going to run out. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I have a lot of fear around that whole thing, and getting caught and, you know, feeling lazy because I'm not working 2 and 3 jobs like I used to, and just stressed out of my mind. So I figured out that I am ruining my joy at this point in time. I just need to settle into where I am at and quit stressing myself out for stupid stuff, which is, I think, the main thing that I took out of that whole thing is I was blessed with this situation. I need to enjoy it, and I'm not enjoying it as much as I should, because I'm still got old programming in me about you have to work hard for your money, and because I'm not working 2 and 3 jobs all the time, and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, this doesn't feel like work to me. The stuff that I am doing doesn't feel like work to me because it is so freaking fun. There's some guilt around that, because when I tell people what I do, I'm like, it doesn't feel like work. I'm like, I sit around and play all day, and that still needs to shift over from old thinking to new thinking, and so I got to work on that some more. Anyway, I think that's probably it. So I'm gonna open my eyes here. 19 minutes. Okay. So yeah, that's the gist of it. And let me tell you, this was like a 3-hour from beginning to end. Well, I'm not even going to tell you how long I was there, because her and I talk a lot before we get started. and then it takes like 15 minutes to get into the hypnosis part of it. And then, once you get in there, it's like, it was a couple hours when I was kind of like under, I'll say, and she was in there digging around, and I wanted to stay in Mount Shasta forever, honestly. I did a meditation this morning where I went back in there, because I need to dig around and see what else is in the Mount Shasta cavern for light workers in the future in the recharging center. So anyhow, I think that's it. Again, if you want to BQH, that's kind of how that works. We go in and dig around and find out blocks. So I have people that are going, I need to come and see you, but I don't know what do I need to do? Do I need another tarot reading? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do this? And I just want to say this. Basically, from me, I feel like you only need one tarot reading, and that's kind of in the beginning when we are kind of getting an overview of what's going on with you and your situation. And then when we can kind of determine, like, this looks like it's a block or a fear or something that needs to be worked on, and you've worked on everything on your own as much as you can, and you're stuck, then you come to me, and then we go in and we dig around and we try to get to some of the root stuff and figure out, why is this still a block? Why am I not moving forward here? Why is this not happening? What is blah, 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 blah. And that's why I ended up going to her. One, because I wanted to experience a BQH session for myself, but I also had gotten kind of stuck on some stuff, and so that was why I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, I'm going to go see her. And, if I'm here to help other people and I've tapped out where I am, then I need to figure out what's going to take me to the next level. So I came back, came out of that knowing that probably working on some of the youthing meditations and studying up on the youthing stuff, because that is coming up in my reality in more ways than one. It just keeps kind of showing up in my face for different reasons. And so I'm thinking that's some stuff I need to work on, and I need to go in and start working on some different ways of meditating to learn other things. So anyway, stay tuned. I'm just getting started again. Send me a message if you have any questions about a BQH session, and I will get back with you ASAP. Talk to you later. Bye.